Hola Jerry, estoy en Puerto Vallarta, México para una semana. Es como esto. Mira, la playa, oh, los árboles. Well, yeah, I am in a resort for lesbians in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. And you think sometimes what's you and what's not you, and I sure don't think of this as me, but here I am doing it. So, but I know I have some homework to turn into you, and so I'm making you this movie. Hi, I hope you're having a good week, Jerry. And I've been thinking a lot about the Antoine Fisher movie and what I would do around boundary crossings and the things that I would use as my criteria for deciding when it's appropriate to cross a boundary and extend a boundary and when it's not. And the things that I would do to consider when it's okay, I think first it's really important to maybe spend several years just doing therapy in the office and really getting to know when someone has attachment stuff that they're going to put on you, really getting to identify through experience who's who and what might be safe. And I think in the session, the first time boundary extension might be coming up is around physical touch, right? So hugging or shaking hands, like you said, touching fingers, e.g. Wondering, I think the thing that seems really important is consent. That seems like a first piece that just is really huge, asking somebody if it's okay with them. So I think that's one thing I would do. And also, like, am I going to get any kind of charge out of the touch? And doing sessions around making sure that it's not because I want to hug that person or something that I'm doing it, that it's actually therapeutic on both ends. But for the first, I think quite a long time, I'm going to want to not do any kind of out of session stuff with people. I know that I'm going to be working probably a lot in my own community, in the lesbian community, so I think I'll see people at parties, I'll see people at community events, and I think one thing there is to make sure, and that's confidentiality as well as a boundary extension, right? Would I go to a party if a bunch of other people I know are going to be there? I definitely think not drinking at those parties is really important, but also talking with my clients ahead of time about what is it like if we see each other in public? How do we do that? I think there's a huge cultural context piece. I thought about the way that my own internalized white guilt plays out is around wanting to be accepted by people of color, wanting to be seen as someone who's down or whatever. And so, like, if I was accepted to go worship at a black church, for instance, looking at how much of that is my own desire to appear like I am together enough to be asked to be in that environment. So if I'm satisfying that, then it's important, I think, to maybe decline and do some of my own work around that. If there's a special occasion or something that really is going to benefit the client, then I think that's a really important distinction to make. And I think specifically, like, around my policies that I make, I'm going to have to ask myself that, am I doing this for my own good or for their good? And not that I'm not supposed to get anything out of it, but I think it needs to still be centered in the client. So that's what I've been thinking about this week. There's a lot of therapists here, a lot of gym teachers and English teachers and therapists and social workers. And so it's interesting. It's like so many lesbians, 700 people, all of them are lesbians. It's a whole cultural thing. Let's see, I have some notes here for the other things I was thinking about policy making around boundary extensions. And I don't think you wanted to know our policies as much as what kind of thought goes into making them. And so that's what I focused on. Waiting a long time. Oh, I think one thing that I thought about in the movie, looking at the way Davenport operated, is that I would think about how I discuss the crossing of a boundary or the extending of a boundary. And it seems to me really important to be clear about what the boundaries are, and then so when we are going to extend them, to know, that there still are boundaries in place. So what are the time parameters? What am I going to go to your football game? If you're a teenage boy and your mom never goes to your football game, and so I go to your football game, am I going to go to everyone, or am I going to go to just the homecoming game? And so their expectations can get talked about. Oh, and I think that's another piece, like that there gets to be a conversation about it. So if there's something that needs to change, that we get to have time to discuss how that feels on the part of the client, and for me, like, what is my reasoning behind that. Also, I would say, if we're gonna talk about extending a boundary, what we hope to gain from it, and this doesn't have to be some big formal thing, but getting it in writing when necessary, but also bring it back to a therapeutic piece. I think community is therapeutic. I think healing depends on a lot of people coming together to support every individual. So I think that fits really well within my theoretic framework. But saying, why are we choosing to extend this boundary? What is in it therapeutically, and how long is it going to last? What does it really involve? So that both people, meaning me and the client, are clear about what's going to happen. I think before I do that, though, I need to think about all the possible things that could go wrong, all the worst case scenarios, and how I'm going to handle them. And there's a good chance that I still won't account for what actually does happen, but at least I've given it some thought and done the best I could around that. Another reason why I think it's important to stay just in the office for the first several years is because I think that I can get an idea of when it's going to create more of a problem for a client that I were to cross a boundary. There's a big piece, I think, about that. People wanting to be good clients, people wanting to be liked or loved, or the most liked or loved. And if I know someone is going to maybe use the information to tell another client, and there may be like people pitted against each other, I think that's really, really important to consider. And I think if there was a case of an emergency, maybe I would bring somebody into my home or my life or my family. But I do feel like it's important that I get to be someone who my client doesn't have to think about so much in the context of what I need or what I might want. And so I think I would really seriously limit their exposure to my life, and be really careful even still when I enter their lives in other ways other than in the office. Let's see. Oh yeah, and of course the big piece for me is just examining my own internalized anti-Semitism. Am I trying to save somebody, or am I trying to support somebody? Because I do want to save people. That's one of my biggest issues as a person emerging in this field, is that I want to save people, and so I need to do a lot of sessions about, I think all of my stuff fits into that. Being a white woman, being a trans person, being a Jew, those are really important factors. And like, why do I feel like I need to save the world and give up my weekends? Like, somehow I'd be concerned that I would be showing my commitment through doing unpaid work. And I think I really have to look at that and the whole money piece in there. For instance, if I were to do a phone session in the middle of the week, would I charge for that session? I wrote that some in my policies, but I think that's, it would be really easy to not. Like, for me, that would be kind of my issue, is to like let things slide, and I don't want to do that. So going to graduations, going to weddings, going to bar mitzvahs, it's going to be a while before I do any of that. And I want to really keep in mind the things that I just told you before I do that. So with that, please let me know if there's anything else you need. Thanks for the feedback on my informed consent. I just got that today. And then I think I'm just going to shut off this computer and go be by the beach for the rest of the week, because it's a once-in-a-lifetime kind of opportunity. All right, Jerry, lots of love to you. I hope you're having a good week, and I'll see you next week.